the launch today of another campaign by a new political party. It's called the South African Rainbow Alliance. Their presidential candidate, it's no surprise to you, you watch Newzroom Afrika, you know who it is, Colleen Makhubele. She says that the process to register the alliance with the Electoral Commission is underway. She spoke publicly for the first time today after her former political party, COPE, fired her, which means that she can no longer be a councillor in the city of Joburg and no longer speaker in Joburg. COPE accused her of breaching their constitution after she was seen on campaign posters for the SA Rainbow Alliance. The alliance describes itself as a coalition of political parties and civil society organizations that want to jointly contest next year's elections. Juniour Khumalo was at today's briefing. He joins us now. Juniour, good afternoon to you. So, what is the SA Rainbow Alliance?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Let's start here, where Colleen Makhubele was justifying her termination of her membership from COPE. She indicated that unlike what people are hearing out there from COPE itself, COPE and its president, Mosiuoa Lekota, were actually heavily involved in the formation of this South African Rainbow Alliance. She says that talks about forming this Rainbow Alliance started as far back as last year. Let's hear what she had to say about this.
The discussions began as early as August this year. That's when we started to meet with various parties. And we had more parties. We had the PAC, we had the APC, AIC was part of it, but they since fell off, some of them. And we decided to formalize in September, when we then said, now, let us work towards forming one vehicle that we can all contest in. And various parties, including COPE, was given an opportunity, to go and consult with its structures, because we're talking to presidents now. Go and consult with the structures and then come back with a decision to say, how do we move forward? Most of them came back end of September, including the COPE presidents, President Lekota, and we've got all of the footages that we've been filming, the discussions, it's on YouTube, etc., where all parties came back and said, yes, we have the go-ahead, let us proceed with this. It was Super PAC then, and now it is called SARA because we want to rebrand it and dissociate it with the Super 7 of local government, because this is provincial and national alliance. And we now have started with the IEC process, and I don't know when it will be concluded, but it's underway. Submissions have been made, so we'll just wait for how it unfolds.
That is Colleen Makhubele just explaining that this formation of the Rainbow Alliance started as far back as last year. Now what is happening with this SARA is about 4 smaller parties have joined this coalition. And it's not just a coalition, a pre-election coalition. It is actually parties agreeing to put aside their names, their logos, and go into the elections under one banner, which is SARA. We know that there are about 492 political parties that are registered with the IEC. We're not saying that all of them are going to contest in next year's elections, but that would be a big ballot paper to come up with as the IEC. So they are saying that this is a means of just coming together in the formation of parties that have the same desires for South Africans to basically compete in next year's elections under one banner. And Colleen Makhubele is their presidential candidate for next year.
So, a couple of things about Joburg that we need to just sort out. She's not appealing the decision by COPE. She's no longer a COPE councillor, which means that as we speak now, I mean, Joburg already doesn't have a council chamber that they can use. It also doesn't have a speaker. Is that right?
Indeed. So she did speak to us today saying that she is definitely not contesting that decision by COPE, and meaning that she's no longer the speaker. She said that she felt bad because she didn't get the opportunity to speak to the COPE's coalition partners in Johannesburg, your ANC, your EFF, and just explain that she was leaving and joining this new formation. So she said she would have wished that COPE spoke to her before she was her membership was terminated. She said she found out, like everyone else, from the news without being told by COPE itself.
So she appeared on election posters for another political party and is now cross that she was expelled from COPE.
What is interesting about that, she says that she seems to suggest that the COPE leader, Mosiuoa Lekota, is the one who wanted to actually be the president for this political formation. And because these other party leaders, from the NFP to the Independent Citizens Movement, did not vote for Lekota, they actually voted for her, then that's when he got cross and asked her to step aside from the party.
Okay, there are other things here, because she says she's sorry that she wasn't able to speak to the ANC and the EFF and the Patriotic Alliance, but she's now going to compete directly against them in elections next year, right?
Indeed, but she did indicate that they are still speaking to these other parties. I'm guessing that the EFF is part of the parties that they are speaking to, but she did indicate that the ANC is one party that they're not willing to work with. She spoke about how the ANC is corrupt, but in Joburg, surprisingly, she was working with the ANC as the speaker. So it's a bit confusing. But also another interesting
I don't know if it's confusing at all.
is the NFP, which has been in the South African political discourse for about 12 years, is now contesting under this banner of SARA. We know that the NFP contested in the 2021 local government elections. But from what has happened now, this is an end of an era for a political party that has been in South African discourse for over a decade now.
And then with an interesting history. It's, of course,
With
a
a very
split from the IFP, failed to pay its deposits in most of the municipalities 6 years ago.
Indeed.
Truly the stories. So what is going to make the SA Rainbow Alliance, and Colleen Makhubele, their presidential candidate, she tells us, what's going to make them different to all of the other political parties that we have? Because there's so many new political parties now that are all trying to carve out their own identity.
Indeed. She spoke about how this coalition pre-election agreement is different from the one that we saw with the DA, Action SA, as well as the IFP. She said that coalition is a group of parties that are contesting under their different political party names and will only form a coalition after the elections. With this alliance, all of these parties are going to basically cast aside their political parties and contest under the name SARA. So she says that this will basically cause less confusion for South Africans, which I'm not sure if it's going to be less confusing, because we know the NFP is in partnership with the ANC at local government level in KwaZulu-Natal. And they say that they are going to continue with that partnership until 2026. So how does a party then that forms a part of this collective then continue in coalition with the ANC until 2026? It's a very interesting development in the South African political landscape.
Juniour Khumalo, maybe you and I need to hold hands through the election and come to terms with the fact that some of our questions won't be answered.
Definitely.
Juniour Khumalo, our political reporter.